Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our first Healthy Talks of 2023. My name is Shukriya. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a work study student with the Neighborhood Friends and Families campaign at the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children here at Western University, and I will be your moderator today for our NFF youth panel today. So we want to focus on building healthy relationships with ourselves. And before we can talk about healthy relationship with other people, how do we ensure that we have one with ourselves first? Our panelists are here today to talk to you just about that. So I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today, all of which are members of the NFF Youth Advisory Council. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Basola. My pronouns are she, her.
My name is Dasnoor, and my pronouns are also she, her.
My name is Delani, and my pronouns are she, her.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here today. So we'll just dive right into our discussion. My first question is for Bisola, who I'm going to spotlight. There we go. So how do you become more comfortable with being alone?
Thanks for the question. I think this is something I still struggle with myself. So to truly love yourself, you need to be comfortable being around yourself, which means being comfortable being alone. I think this is something you probably learn over time. You can start by doing things that allow you to enjoy your own company. And the thing about solitude is that it does provide a great opportunity to process your inner thoughts and desires, which might actually be the reason you're uncomfortable alone, being alone in the first place. So think deeply about the reasons you're uncomfortable being alone and try to confront them. And hopefully you get to a point where you realize that you're good enough all by yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And there's usually like a lot of stimulation, like social media and stuff that usually prevents us from actually being alone with ourselves. So thank you for sharing. My next question for you is, who or what inspires you the most?
I'd say myself and my journey. So sometimes just taking a moment to remember how far I've come and the challenges I've overcome can be really inspirational. So remembering that I am someone who's capable of making progress and growing. So that's always something I think back to whenever I'm, lacking a bit of inspiration. And I'm also inspired by seeing women of color inhabit spaces that I'd like to see myself in the future. Representation really matters, and it's really inspirational seeing women of color be exceptional.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I love that you gave yourself the recognition that you deserved and also talked about seeing people who represent you in spaces that you want to be in. I find that really empowering as well. So thank you. My next question is for Desnoor, who I'm going to spotlight now. There we go. So in what ways do you practice self-care, and do you think that it's enough?
Well, for me, I think the definition of self-care is kind of just like any and all things you do to make your future self feel, happy and healthy and like yourself. And so for me personally, that involves having a lot of structure in my life. I like knowing what exactly I'm doing when I'm doing it. So that includes, like scheduling out my to-do list for the week, planning out like what meals I'm going to have, when am I going to have them, working in times where I can have like little walks or little workouts. Meeting up with friends, like being in contact with friends and meeting up with them, be it to either like study or like get food, just kind of figuring out like what exactly do you need in your life to feel really like just like happy and like at your best. And so typically I think that involves like, having some social interaction, but also having some time to like do things that like exercise your mind and exercise your body. And so ultimately, like, I don't think there's any way you can kind of quantify self-care. You can't ever say like, oh, like, am I doing enough? There's no right or wrong way to practice it, as long as like at the end of the day, you feel like you're taking time to ensure, your own personal well-being.
For sure. And like you can't pour if your glass is empty, right? You have to figure out ways to fill your cup, and it looks different for everyone. And I'm glad that you've identified some ways that it works for you. Okay, so my next question is, what about leveling up? So where do you draw the line at self-improvement?
Okay, so I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like on social media, I've seen like a lot of like kind of, it's almost trendy to like, be bettering yourself, like leveling up your mindset, making vision boards, like tracking your habits through Notion. And like, I do agree with like the basic, like the premise, like of the trend. I think you should always be working towards ways to like learn more about yourself, learn more about the world, but for yourself almost, and not just because like it's expected of you. And I think like right now there is that kind of emphasis on like kind of reaching the next level of yourself, almost as if you're some like project that's always being worked on. And this feels like very reminiscent of hustle culture, where you should always be working on the next best thing. And I think that kind of emphasis can really lead us to lose sight of like where we are currently in our lives and how much work we've already done to get to where we are, and like kind of just fully appreciating those moments. And when you're always like thinking about the next best thing, you can kind of like perpetuate that mindset where like once I have XYZ, my life will be so much better. Or, like once I graduate, I'm going to have this type of freedom and I can finally do XYZ or ABC, whatever it is. And so I think the important thing is like when you are thinking about like, oh, like how can I be a better person, like you just need to remind yourself that like where you are currently in your life, that is not a transitional period. You don't want to treat every part of your life like some sort of transitional period before you get better. Yeah, you just need to like appreciate where you are, like enjoy the journey, not the destination.
That reminds me of like Miley Cyrus, The Climb. um, but like, yeah, you should definitely reflect on how far you've come and appreciate where you are in the moment. Constantly working at yourself can be exhausting, and like you don't appreciate the steps that you've taken to become the person you are today. So thank you so much. That was awesome. And last but not least, we have Delani. I will be spotlighting. There we go. Okay, Delani. So my question for you is, in what ways are you showing yourself love?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I tried to do, but at the top of my list is definitely like self-care and taking time to reflect and do things that make me happy, and things that maybe I do on my own or maybe I do with other people, but prioritizing my own needs when I need to, and making sure that I'm not forgetting about myself. Helping other people is important, and it's a good thing to do that, but it's not a bad thing to also be helping yourself and taking care of yourself, and you shouldn't be feeling guilty about taking time out of your day to help yourself, or sometimes prioritizing your own well-being over someone else's. Also, just trying to set boundaries with your friends and your family, just so they understand the things that you're comfortable with, and hopefully what they're comfortable with too, so that you maintain a good relationship, but also that you're taking care of your needs and not allowing other people to step over a line that might hurt you. Lastly, just trying not to compare myself to other people. It's really easy, especially in a school setting, to get lost in that, but make sure to focus on your own goals and yourself, and don't worry about what other people are doing, but look at what you're doing and how you're progressing and be proud of that.
For sure. And like in the age, I feel like social media gets brought up so much, but things like LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram, where you're constantly seeing people's achievements or their highlight reels, things like that. And you never really know what's going on behind the screen. And you're comparing your worst moments to their best moments, can be really hurtful. So I'm glad that you've put up that boundary of not comparing yourself, or trying your best not to compare yourself. Um, so my next question for you is, how do you bounce back from any failures, challenges, or hurt?
Well, failure or challenges and hurt, it's all inevitable in life. Everyone's going to experience it, but how you how you take that in is really important. So try to acknowledge and learn from your mistakes when they happen, but don't obsess over them. A mistake, it's not going to change itself. You can't go back in time and erase it from history. It's already there. It's already been done. So take your time to just process what happened and just move on from it, learn from it, and try not to repeat it again. But it's really important to take time to process things that happen. There's no need to rush things. People don't heal instantly. So it's important to allow yourself to feel all of your emotions and process them in a way that's healthy, and not rush them. But also to kind of move on and progress, you probably want to try maybe taking a different approach, or maybe make a new plan to approach your scenario differently, and maybe just hope that you get a different outcome this time. You know, you can't avoid failure, but you shouldn't fear failure either. It's a great learning opportunity. Um, and it's just a part of life. So we have to learn and adapt to that anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree about not obsessing about your mistakes. I find that it's such a hard thing to do. Um, I know that for myself, whenever I make a mistake, it gets really hard not to like talk down to myself or obsess about it and think about all the things that were in my control that I didn't do right the first time. My natural instinct is to engage in negative self talk, which can lead to lower self esteem. Some ways that I address it is admitting to myself that I made a mistake or messed up, like the fact that I just admit that to myself can be a powerful thing. And afterwards, I try to think about how big of an impact it had on me. Like, am I really going to think about this in a month's time or 2 months' time? Um, and try to think of like what's in my control. So I made a mistake, depending on what it is. It could be school, friends, whatever. Is there anything that I can change? If there's nothing that I can change, then I try my best to say, okay, like you've learned from it, move on, don't obsess about it. Like thinking about how if I just got ready 5 minutes earlier, I wouldn't have missed this bus. Well, now I missed the bus. It's over. So like I'm just waiting for the next bus. That's just kind of like accepting it, right? Um, and yeah, and if I have an opportunity to change it, then obviously I can try my best to. And that's just how I personally deal with making mistakes. Um, and knowing that I'm much more than that moment, right? Like we all make mistakes, we all mess up. So yeah, thank you, Delani, so much for bringing up that topic. I appreciate it. And these were some really great and insightful answers. I love how self aware you guys are. I love that you guys took the time to come here today and be with us and share your insight with everyone. I know that they'll really appreciate it once we share it with the community, and hopefully people can learn and take some of your advice or things that you do for yourself. I would like to take a moment to thank all of you for being here today. You're working towards building a world free of gender-based violence and a world more full of self-love. And it all starts within, right? So thank you again, and I hope you all have a great day. And yeah, we'll see you for our next Healthy Talks. Bye.